All right, let's jump right into this because we are looking at an archaeological marvel that is literally rewriting human history as we speak. Today, we're exploring Karahantepe. Instead of the usual, textbook timeline of simple hunter-gatherers, we are diving headfirst into a prehistoric world filled with monumental architecture, highly complex societies, and a psychological shift that changed absolutely everything. This explainer takes us back over 11,000 years to uncover an era of humanity that was, frankly, way more sophisticated than we ever dared to imagine.
Okay, let's dive into this because it's a massive paradigm shift. For decades, the accepted story about early human religion was that it was heavily animistic, right? It was all about this deep reverence for wild animals and the unstoppable forces of nature. But what if the cradle of human belief wasn't built just to revere the animal kingdom? What if, right at the very dawn of settled society, humanity decided to worship itself? Well, that is the exact shift that Karahantepe represents.
To really wrap our heads around this, we first need to get a sense of place. Picture this. We're anchored about 46 kilometers east of Şanlıurfa in southeastern Turkey, right in the middle of the rugged, stunning terrain of the Tek Mountains National Park. And this isn't just some isolated dig site. It's actually a critical piece of the broader Taş Tepeler, or Stone Hills project. This whole region is proving to be the absolute epicenter of the Neolithic Revolution. And the timeline we're looking at here, it is honestly staggering. We're talking about the pre-pottery Neolithic era. That's 9,500 to 8,000 BC. To put that into perspective, that is thousands of years before the invention of the wheel, metal tools, or writing. Now, these familiar T-shaped pillars were actually first spotted poking out of the dirt in 1997 during a surface survey by Bahattin Çelik. But it wasn't until 2019 that systemic, large-scale excavations really got going under Professor Necmi Karul. And what his team found? Unbelievable.
So the crucial point we need to hit on is the stark contrast between Karahantepe and its incredibly famous sister site, Göbekli Tepe. You've probably heard of Göbekli Tepe. It's known for these isolated, highly specialized ritual sites that are just dominated by animal symbolism. Basically, it was a place you visited, not a place you lived. But Karahantepe, it completely flips that script. Here, we're seeing complex ritual spaces, totally intertwined with everyday domestic life. And even crazier, the focus shifts away from animals and points directly at the human figure. Because unlike its famous neighbor, ordinary people were actually living right next to the sacred spaces here. Archaeologists have dug up tons of hearths, stone mortars, grinding stones, and these incredibly sharp obsidian and flint tools. And these aren't ceremonial either. These are practical, everyday survival tools. It paints this incredibly vivid picture of a bustling, settled community. You've got families cooking, working, and sleeping, literally footsteps away from these monumental sacred chambers.
And speaking of those sacred chambers, they are entirely unique. Imagine just for a second, standing in that ancient settlement. You aren't looking up at some towering temple reaching for the sky. Actually, you look down. The most important structures here were directly carved right into the bedrock, descending straight into the earth. It creates this undeniably mysterious, almost womb-like atmosphere. You are physically stepping down into the foundation of the earth itself to commune with whatever it was these people held sacred.
Let's mentally walk down into one of these spaces together, specifically the awe-inspiring AA structure. First, you step into this massive circular room that was painstakingly hollowed out of solid bedrock, using nothing but other stones. Then, as your eyes adjust to the shadows, boom, you are confronted by a monumental human head protruding right out of the wall. And it's staring out over a field of 11 imposing, phallic-shaped stone pillars carved directly from the floor. Then, you look down at your feet and you see these intricate channels carved into the stone, clearly designed to direct the flow of liquids. Maybe water, maybe blood, or some other ritual fluids flowing throughout the whole chamber.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer level of detail they put into that monumental head. It's this eerie, fully three-dimensional face just locked onto those 11 pillars. The sculptors gave it a really pronounced jawline, distinct ears, and, get this, what looks like a snake-like motif, or maybe a thick neckband wrapped right around its throat. It is such a powerful, dominating presence anchoring the room. You really have to ask yourself, who is this supposed to be? A deity? A revered ancestor? And directly connected to that intense subterranean room is the AB structure, which is essentially a massive communal hall. The really brilliant thing about this design is the wide stone seating benches that ring the entire room, right alongside those iconic T-shaped pillars. I want you to just imagine the ancient gatherings that went down in here.
Picture the flickering firelight, the acoustics of chanting or storytelling echoing off those bedrock walls, while dozens of people sat shoulder to shoulder on those exact benches, taking part in whatever rituals were happening next door. But, okay, how did a society that didn't even have metal tools pull this off? Well, the answer is just a little ways up the hill, in the ancient quarries. We can actually see the bedrock areas showing the exact negative spaces where these massive ton-heavy limestone pillars were painstakingly cut out, shaped, and then somehow dragged to the main site. The engineering and the sheer community coordination needed for this is mind-blowing. It's absolute proof that these weren't just scattered bands of foragers. This was a highly organized, cohesive society with dedicated laborers and absolute master craftsmen. And oh man, those master craftsmen were busy. The sheer volume and variety of animal sculptures they've pulled from the dirt here is wild. We're not just talking about flat 2D carvings either. These are fully three-dimensional, dynamic statues. We've got a running fox, a prowling leopard, vultures, wild boars, gazelles. I mean, they even found a decorated hedgehog. The artistic explosion happening at Karahantepe shows a society vibrating with creativity, capturing the terrifying and beautiful natural world in a way we have literally never seen before in human history. Yet, it's really how they showed humans interacting with these animals that tells the biggest story. Check out this artifact. It's a highly detailed sculpture of a human carrying a wild boar on its back. This perfectly illustrates a very complex, evolving relationship. The human isn't cowering from the beast anymore. The human has conquered it, hunted it, or maybe is carrying it as an offering. It so perfectly captures that exact transitionary moment where humanity is just beginning to assert its dominance over the natural world. And the wealth doesn't stop at the monumental statues either. The everyday artifacts are just astonishing. They found shallow plates covered in complex geometric motifs, massive stone cauldrons that were definitely used for huge communal feasts, intricate necklaces made out of jade and bone, and these exquisitely napped, razor-sharp obsidian arrowheads. This massive abundance of goods highlights a society with a highly advanced aesthetic. I mean, these people clearly cared about beauty, personal style, and the shared joy of a massive community feast. Okay, let's pause for a second because we need to see how all this architectural and artistic brilliance builds up to one staggering climax. During the 2023 excavation season, the team found something that literally left the archaeological world speechless: a statue measuring a massive 2.3 meters in height. Say hello to the seated man. This is a towering 2.3-meter-tall statue of a guy sitting right on a bench, and the anatomy is incredibly realistic. You can distinctly see his carved ribs and the tense muscles in his arms and his back. He's sitting upright, holding his genitals with both hands, which is a posture that anthropologists heavily link to ancestor cults, virility, and the continuation of the human bloodline. It is this unapologetic, raw display of immortality and human-centric power carved into stone over 11 millennia ago. So, what does this all mean? When you step back and take it all in, the domestic life blending with the sacred, the human faces staring out of the dark bedrock, and of course, the colossal seated man, you realize what you're actually looking at. This is the physical proof of a massive mental transformation. Karahantepe shows us that Neolithic humans had a highly complex belief system focused entirely on themselves. It captures the exact moment in our evolutionary history when we stopped seeing ourselves just as prey or just another part of nature and firmly planted ourselves at the absolute center of the universe. And honestly, you know what the most exciting part is? We have barely scratched the surface. Karahantepe is just one tiny piece of the massive Taştepeler project. So I'll leave you with this. If this one single site completely rewrote everything we know about the dawn of human civilization, what other breathtaking secrets, what other monumental statues, and what other totally forgotten chapters of our own human story are still lying hidden right now beneath the stone hills, just waiting to be dug up?